I settled after college in the Army near my home in Great Bridge, I didn't want to go back there because it was all building up so badly and traffic was bad. My degree in animal science from Virginia Tech was going to be directed towards something in the meat industry, because what little bit of farm we had in Great Bridge was, most of it was sold off. I didn't have a farm to go back to for production agriculture as an animal scientist, but I did have interest in the food industry. My grandfather and father had a tradition of curing hams on our place in Great Bridge in Chesapeake. So the combination of degree and opportunity, and Smithfield being fairly close to my hometown, it seemed like the logical place to come to look for work. Got a job offer for the following August at Gwaltney Meatpacking Company as a supervisor, when I would be getting out of the service August 1st. Got the job of the lunch meat slicing department for $20,000 a year, which was a terrible pay cut, even from the Army. But this is where I had to come if I wanted to be anywhere near home and do the business that I wanted to be in. And so I took that job and worked at Gwaltney for a total of 6 months. During that time, they were moving the entire lunch meat department from Gwaltney and Smithfield. They were moving it over to Portsmouth. Started out at Portsmouth working with hot dogs. The very first thing I did to get my feet on the ground with the company. Then I went back to Smithfield, worked in the lunch meat department there. And then during that summer, they started unbolting the equipment from the floor and moving it over to the Portsmouth location. I did stay over there with Portsmouth and lunch meat for a while until January of the following year, '89. I had put in some resumes, including one here on Main Street at VW Joyner Meatpacking Company. So I got a call in January of '89 that the man that I had given my resume to, Jim Groves, he hired me as plant manager. It was a good title and had a lot of responsibility and authority, and I stayed there for 6.5 years. And during that time, I was interested in trying to get myself some land for my family and future generations. I went around with some real estate agents, looked at some land, talked to some people, and for one reason or another, it wasn't appropriate. I put an ad in the paper saying, if you think you're going to have some property to sell in the next few years and you still want to live there, we could make a deal to agree to buy your property at a date in the future at a certain price. We could come there and assist you in your old age with managing your property in exchange for this promise that we're going to be able to buy the property when you finally get off the property. I got some calls, but nothing came out of that. And then one day I was walking around and I went through the woods, and then I ended up beside this house I had never seen before. It was all, rotting down house, but it had a couple of real estate signs that were thrown up against the wall, dilapidated and weathered and been there for quite a while. And I thought, I guess this place has been for sale fairly recently. So I contacted the people through the courthouse records, made an offer, and it was accepted. Now I made my offer contingent on one thing, and that was that because I was going to be buying a large amount of land, I didn't have so much money, so I couldn't buy land and also have a house, because to buy a house with that land would be out of my budget. So I was going to have to do something make do, and that was the best thing I thought of was a mobile home. So I put it in a contract that this contract will be contingent on me getting approval through the County Board of Supervisors for the placement of a mobile home for me to live in. I started that process, and at the same time they had to start a process of tracking down their relatives, because as it turned out, when I bought this farm, there were 27 signatures that were required because it was an heir property, and the original owner had died in '35. So this is a large story of a lot of moving pieces that had to mesh. I had bought a house on Great Spring Road, put it on the market, and there was a family coming from Miami who had been stationed in the Navy in Florida, and he had 2 kids and a wife, and they needed a house, and they looked at my property and said they wanted it. So I moved out of my house, put all my belongings into the separate garage on the property, except what I needed just to get along, and they moved into my house. I lived out behind the house in a 2-wheel Shasta camping trailer. I was approved to get my mobile home on the land, so I started also looking for a mobile home that I could afford. So I remember that I bought the trailer that the Edwards family, Philip Edwards family, had used when they were raising their 3 kids. They sold me that trailer for $2,000 cash. So now I had a house to live in, but I had to move it. So now I had the contract approved, I had the loan approved, I had the Board of Supervisors approval, and I had a place to put on the property to live in. I moved into the mobile home. The power company came and turned the power on, and that was a big moment. When I had electricity, I was back in the 20th century. A lot of families came to America on a ship or on Ellis Island. I looked at this whole experience as kind of like my coming to America experience, in the sense that I went through this ordeal, which to me was really kind of fun. It wasn't that bad at all, really. and I look back on it with fondness and a favorable outlook. And it does seem to be a problem with who's going to keep agriculture going if people don't have land and they find it difficult to acquire land. I don't know that there's that many people that are going to try to go through a very tenuous thing that I was able to pull off. I love how quiet it is out here, because most of an hour every day, of all the hours, you don't see a car come, back to back, hardly ever.